The landscape of the NBA trade deadline is becoming clearer by the day, and with about a month left until the final buzzer on deals, it's time to lock in some predictions. The dominoes have started to fall with Trae Young's move, setting a tone for what's to come. The big question now is who follows him out the door and who stays put. This isn't about wild speculation, it's about reading the tea leaves of reports, contract situations, and team desperation to see where the league is inevitably headed. Let's start with the seismic plates that aren't actually shifting. Giannis Antetokounmpo tops any theoretical list, but the reality is firm. He's made his stance clear, publicly stating he isn't requesting a trade. In today's NBA, that statement is the ultimate veto power. Without that formal demand, Milwaukee has zero incentive and less than zero desire to entertain the unthinkable. The conversation around Giannis is a fascinating what-if, but it's a distraction from the real moves. My prediction is the simplest one: Giannis isn't going anywhere. That brings us to the most complex and intriguing name on the board, Anthony Davis. The aftermath of the Trae Young trade was immediate, with reports surfacing that the Atlanta Hawks were pivoting hard, creating flexibility to potentially target Davis. This aligns with the whispers that AD is prioritizing one thing above all else: a lucrative contract extension. This is the hidden engine of any Davis trade scenario. His camp still views him as a max-level cornerstone, deserving of a long-term commitment years in advance. This need dictates everything. Does he believe Dallas will give him that extension? If not, he has reason to want out. Conversely, a team that hemorrhages assets to acquire him would be all but forced to meet his extension demands to justify the trade. Atlanta is a logical suitor, and a framework like Kristaps Porzingis, Josh Green, and a pick isn't out of the realm of possibility. Golden State lingers as a dark horse. But with Davis's recent injury history, including a hand issue at the time of this recording, his value is in a precarious spot. Dallas may not get an offer that blows them away, and if the Hawks balk at including more, the safest bet is status quo. As of now, the prediction leans toward Anthony Davis remaining a Maverick. A player whose value has defied preseason expectations is Michael Porter Jr. He's transformed from a salary-matching piece into a genuine, coveted trade asset. The Brooklyn Nets reported asking price, at least one unprotected first-round pick, especially if packaged with Nick Claxton, signals how the league views him now. This isn't a fire sale, it's a strategic auction. The Nets are in an enviable position. They can keep him, let him thrive alongside their young core, and revisit the market later, as he has another year on his deal. However, the league-wide need for versatile, scoring wings is too acute. I believe a team's desperation will meet Brooklyn's price. Milwaukee, desperate to maximize Giannis's window, could part with a distant future pick. Golden State, seeking a final puzzle piece, could offer a similar pick alongside Jonathan Kuminga. The competition for a player of Porter's profile will materialize. Therefore, my prediction is that Michael Porter Jr. gets moved, with the Bucks and Warriors as the most likely landing spots. Speaking of Jonathan Kuminga, his situation is the least mysterious on the board. The Golden State Warriors' handling of him, keeping him on the bench, waiting for the January 15th date when newly signed players can be traded, is a telegraph, not a subtle hint. Any rumor about potentially keeping him is a smokescreen. They have reached the point of no return, much like Atlanta did with Trae Young. The focus isn't on what they could have gotten 2 years ago, it's about extracting whatever value exists now and moving on. Sacramento remains a persistent suitor, with a framework involving Malik Monk and a protected pick that has been discussed since the offseason. Brooklyn is another logical destination if they see him as a long-term piece. The Warriors must simply cut bait. I am as close to 100% confident as possible that Jonathan Kuminga will be traded by the deadline, with the Kings being the most probable destination. The trade deadline isn't only about stars and former high lottery picks, it's also about rotational players who can tip the scales for a contender. Kobe White fits this bill perfectly. He's a scoring guard on an expiring contract, and Chicago seems to have settled on a backcourt future that doesn't heavily feature him. For a team needing an offensive spark plug, he's an ideal, low-risk rental. Detroit is a fascinating fit. They attempted a similar move last season with Dennis Schroeder to relieve creation pressure off Cade Cunningham. They lack that player now, and for a Pistons team with legitimate playoff aspirations, standing pat would be bizarre. Cleveland is another possibility, struggling all year and missing the backcourt pop that players like Ty Jerome provided in the past. White's expiring contract also offers financial relief. The stars align for a move, and I predict Kobe White will be on a new team by the deadline. Then there's Zach LaVine. The noise here is becoming too loud to ignore. With Giannis confirmed as staying in Milwaukee, the Bucks front office knows they cannot run this exact roster into the playoffs and expect a different result. They will be active. While the dream of pairing Anthony Davis with Giannis is tantalizing, the most obvious and repeatedly rumored path leads to LaVine. The Bulls are motivated sellers, and the Bucks have the matching salaries and just enough draft capital to make a compelling offer. It might cost them Bobby Portis, Pat Connaughton, and a pick, but the calculus is straightforward: get Giannis another high-level scorer. Given the Bucks' urgency and the clear availability of LaVine, I am overwhelmingly confident that Zach LaVine will be a Milwaukee Buck after the trade deadline. Of course, for every player on the move, several big names will likely stay put. The other star guards like LaMelo Ball and Donovan Mitchell aren't generating the same trade momentum as Trae Young did, their teams aren't in the same desperate cycle, and their contract situations differ. Jeremy Grant is a valuable piece, but with Milwaukee likely prioritizing LaVine, the market for his high salary may be too thin. The Clippers present interesting cases. Ivica Zubac is an under-the-radar candidate. If a team offers 2 protected first-round picks for the solid center, the Clippers, who are not true contenders this year, would have to listen. However, the most likely outcome is he stays. James Harden's market appears non-existent. A Trae Young-style deal to a young team doesn't fit his age and timeline. In New Orleans, the price for elite role players like Herb Jones and Trey Murphy III will be exorbitant, think multiple first-round picks, and most teams will wisely shy away, meaning both Pelicans likely remain. This deadline may lack the shocking, league-altering move of a Luka Doncic from years past. The biggest piece, Trae Young, has already moved. But the beauty is in the layers beneath. The potential reshuffling of high-level starters like Porter Jr., the inevitable divorce of Kuminga and Golden State, the strategic adds like LaVine to Milwaukee, and the rental market for players like Kobe White create a fascinating, interconnected web. The transparency of this deadline doesn't make it boring, it makes it a chess match where every move is calculated, and the consequences will define the playoff race. This is where the league stands, and these are the moves you should expect to see materialize.